being in Statesboro, of course, we get a lot of DUIs, possession of misdemeanor amount of marijuana, and minor in possession of alcohol. One case that comes to mind was a young man. He was a freshman, so about 18 or 19 years old. I was able to get my hands on a police report, and it turned out, and this is why I'll remember this case probably for the rest of my career. He wasn't just caught with alcohol. He actually went on kind of a spree across campus. So there was surveillance video. I'm sorry. This is so nuts. He actually went to the police station on campus. And he snuck into the parking lot. Now it's a closed parking lot, so he had to follow a police car into the parking lot as the gate opened. And so he trespassed onto the police station parking lot. They saw him on camera. Somehow he got out, I guess, when another car was leaving. When the gate opened, he did the same thing. He left behind the vehicle. Went across campus. I can't remember the other things he did, but I do remember when campus police showed up at his dorm. He was very profane with them. At least one of the officers was a female, and he said some very graphic sexual things to her as they were trying to arrest him. Oh gosh, what was the other thing? And then they pulled him. Oh man, yeah. What was it? They said something to him. They had him out of the room, and then they were like, "All right, let's go." And then he ran back into the dorm and closed the door, and they had to get him out again. Anyway, it was one of those cases where the facts were just terrible, way worse, frankly, than the charge. I think he's very fortunate that they didn't. I mean, I've seen cases where the officer gets upset and just every charge, they're literally going through the criminal code, what can I throw at him, because this guy was such a jerk. Let me just stack the charges. But in this case, they didn't do that. So he's, like I said, he's 18 or 19, gets a minor in possession of alcohol. And this was actually around the time of an election. So he came to me, and we had an interim prosecutor in, and we had a new prosecutor coming in. A new prosecutor whom I'd known from another office to be tough, very difficult to deal with, whereas the incumbent interim was actually a pretty great guy, very, very reasonable. So, having learned what the actual facts were in the case, I talked to the client, and I was like, well, listen, I'm going to go talk to this guy. I know him. They're in a transition period that could work to our benefit. So I just went up and, brought some information about the case, met him in his office, started chatting with him about the case, and I realized that that law enforcement had not turned over the file to him yet, or at least not not all the evidence. So he didn't have all the video of this kid having the wild night that he had. And so he was aware that the guy, he was aware that he had been rude with the officer and that he was clearly underage. And that's no aspersion on the prosecutor, because he's, like I said, this is a college town. If you're doing misdemeanor court, you've got literally thousands of cases. And he had no reason to believe that there was anything spectacular about this case. And so, sensing the opportunity that, as far as he was concerned, this was just another minor in possession case, I went ahead and proposed resolution, probated sentence, a fine, and conditional discharge, which is particularly important for young people. It functions similar to a first offender, whereby once you complete whatever your probation, pay your fines and things, your case is retroactively dismissed, so that you've got you can literally say to an employer, I've never been convicted of a crime, and it has to be your first offense, so that you're able to say that. And he agreed. He was like, oh yeah, we can do that. And so he probably never, once we had the resolution, he probably never looked at the case again. And we were able to get that resolved with probation, remarkably, with probation and a conditional discharge. But I guess that's a prime example of things they don't teach in law school. Situational awareness, kind of knowing what the moving parts are, and trying to use them to your client's advantage. And in that case, I remember telling the kid, I was like, we better take this, because if this guy ever sits down with the file, you're probably going to get additional charges. He trespassed on government property. He broke into he's the only client I've ever had break into a police station. So I was like, we take this now and we hope he never looks at what was actually going on. Unfortunately, he did. Everything worked out. To the young man's credit, he learned his lesson. At least during this period, the period of his probation, he did not get in trouble again. And the case was dismissed. And as far as I know, he has a clean criminal history after breaking into a police station. Yeah.